Tonight we'll have a look, I hope, at both Pañña, or wisdom, and Virya, energy. I'm sure you know that the Noble Eightfold Path is divided up into three sections: Sila, Samadhi, and Pañña. And it is right understanding, samadhiti, which is really the wisdom element there. Sammasankappa, right intention, is also important, but particularly samadhiti, right view or right understanding. Pañña turns up in several of the different lists, like it's one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. It's one of the 5 faculties, the indriyas. It's one of the 5 balas, the powers. I'm going to say a little bit more about those when we get down to Virya as well, because they also feature in those lists. But we can call Pañña wisdom or understanding, but this is not wisdom in perhaps what we might say is conventional usage. It's wisdom in a very special way. It's the deep understanding of the Buddhist teachings, and in particular what are called the Tilakkhana, the 3 signs of being, or 3 characteristics of existence. And they are anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and no self. So Pañña is the development of true understanding of these 3 characteristics. That Dhammapala, Acharya Dhammapala, he says that renunciation, the previous perfection, is perfected and purified by wisdom. That is why wisdom comes after renunciation. In each of these perfections, Dhammapala seems to say that the one following helps to perfect the one preceding it. And wisdom has the characteristic of penetrating to the real essence of phenomena. It is said to be like an arrow shot by a skillful archer, which penetrates through to the target. So its function is, it's like a lamp. It illuminates whatever it is you're looking at. And so it manifests as non-confusion and is like a guide in a forest. The cause for the arising of wisdom is concentration and also understanding of the 4 noble truths. So without wisdom, there is no possibility of the other perfections reaching perfection. So it is very much concerned, very much connected to all the other 9 perfections. And if there weren't any wisdom, then there would be nothing to develop these qualities into perfections. So they're all interdependent. And there must always be great compassion and skillful means. That's with every perfection, but particularly true with wisdom. And it says, Dhammapada says, through wisdom, a bodhisattva brings himself across the stream of suffering. Through compassion, he leads others across. Through wisdom, he understands the suffering of others. Through compassion, he strives to alleviate their suffering. Through wisdom, he destroys all attachments. But because of compassion, he never ceases from actions which benefit others. So we can say that wisdom is the opposite of the three root defilements: greed, hatred, and ignorance. Bhikkhu Bodhi is of the opinion that wisdom should come as the last of the perfections, because it is, in one sense, it's the culmination of the Noble Eightfold Path. It is with the final perfecting of wisdom that we reach enlightenment. And the function of wisdom is to aid the other perfections to develop properly. If it wasn't for the guidance or the control exerted by wisdom, the other paramis would be simply random virtues. But also, without the other 9 perfections, wisdom would not be a perfection either. It would be simply intellectual cleverness, not proper understanding. We can recognize 3 kinds of wisdom: Sutta Maya Pañña, Chinta Maya Pañña, and Bhavana Maya Pañña. Sutta Maya Pañña. This is the wisdom or understanding that one develops by hearing teaching from others. At the time of the Buddha, S-U-T-A, sutta, meant hearing. If you've heard much. Today, we could possibly use the more modern expression of somebody being well read. In those days you were well listened. There weren't any books, but nowadays you can say somebody is well read. He's got some information from external sources. He can try to understand these teachings, and this means that he will be able to study them, to memorize them, and slowly develop from what he hears from outside. So this is kind of second hand. It's coming from outside. Chintamaya Pañña is understanding developed by reflection. You reflect on what has been learned through Suttamaya Pañña. So you take the information you've received from some external source and then you examine it. You can reflect on it, you can investigate it, you can ask questions. The Buddha highly recommended entering into discussions and debates. So now you're deepening your understanding by working on what it is you have already received from outside. And you can try to see how these items, whatever it is you're studying, relate to your own life. So you're making this more of a personal exploration. You know that, yes, I think you know, the Buddha was very emphatic that we should not accept a teaching simply because it comes to us from a respected source. Anybody here not familiar with the Kalama Sutta? Please say if you're not familiar with it. You're not familiar. No. Kalama Sutta is given by the Buddha to some people called Kalamas who come to him and they say, "Sir, we are confused. We get a teacher who comes to us and he gives us his doctrine." Because in those days, teachings were spread by people walking round from place to place to place. And they say, this man goes away, and then another teacher comes along, he rubbishes the first teachings and gives us another set of doctrines. Then he goes, and then a third teacher comes along and he rubbishes the second one and gives us some more. So we're very confused about all this. What should we believe? And the Buddha said, you are right to have doubts, because this is a subject which is open to doubt. And then he lays down 10 criteria what we should not use for accepting a teaching. And included in that is that it is coming from a scripture, or that it is coming from a respected teacher. He says, when you know for yourselves that something is wholesome or something is productive of good results, then you can rely on that. So the danger with Suttamaya Pañña is that it's come to us from outside. And the Buddha was saying in the Kalama Sutta, be very careful about how you accept a teaching coming from outside. So that's why you have to investigate it, subject it to inspection. And the Buddha did say that just as the goldsmith tests the purity of gold, so should you test my teachings. And then the third kind of wisdom, Bhavana Maya Pañña. This is where the intellectual understanding is transformed into direct experience. So we develop these qualities such as mindfulness and concentration in order to deepen our experience and then be able to experience for ourselves the truth of what is being taught. We can experience for ourselves these three characteristics: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the absence of a soul or self. So we have the possibility of eventually developing the perfection, the true wisdom, which comes from direct experience, not something that comes to us from outside. Now, there are defilements which hold us back, nivarana, sense desire, anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So we can use our wisdom to be aware of these qualities, these obstacles as they arise, and then develop a proper understanding of them, and so disarm them of their ability to hold us back. The most important thing that Pañña can eliminate is ignorance, moha. Ignorance is like a cloud that obscures our vision. We cannot see things clearly because of ignorance. And it is ignorance above all which binds us to existence in samsara. And this is why wisdom is given such an important place in the Buddha's teachings. We cannot attain enlightenment by worshipping, by praying, by performing rites or rituals, by developing faith. They won't give us enlightenment. We have to develop our own understanding. So in Buddhism we don't really have a first cause, but both ignorance and craving would be candidates if we had a first cause. And even craving only develops because of ignorance. So it is the power of Pañña to lead us, to eventually allow us to attain enlightenment. The other perfections, other qualities will not do this. And we know that the Buddha told us that it is up to us to develop this. He said, Buddhas are only teachers. Buddhas do but show the way. So if we're going to develop understanding, we've got to do it ourselves. And we can start by looking at the first of these three characteristics, anicca. That is the easiest one to experience. We can look at ourselves. We can watch what goes on in our own mind and body. And we can see from personal investigation that there is nothing permanent or lasting. So we can directly experience, directly see for ourselves this quality of anicca, impermanence, from moment to moment. if we can do that, then this opens the door, and we can then see that because things are impermanent, they cannot be a source of lasting satisfaction or happiness, which is the second characteristic, dukkha. Yeah, there may be temporary, partial happiness, but you won't find permanent happiness from something which is impermanent. And then leading on from that, you can come to understand, because of anicca, that what we find within ourselves doesn't have any lasting or permanent quality. So in this way we can work towards the development of wisdom. Some people feel that when they come to see everything's impermanent, it's going to be a very depressing experience, that nothing lasts. We all want something to last. We all want to find something we can hang on to, and which is going to be enduring and reliable and can be trusted. And so there is perhaps a little tension there. But if you understand impermanence, it's also a sense of release. We're not going to waste our time and our energy trying to hold on to things which are impermanent. So we won't get disappointed when things change. It means that we can enjoy things in the present moment. Buddha never said we couldn't enjoy things, but we enjoy them in the here and now, but we have no attachment to them, and we understand that they are going to change. So we don't get surprised or upset when they do change. So the experience of impermanence, I think, gives us a sense of freedom rather than a negative experience of depression and unhappiness. And these three qualities, anicca, dukkha, anatta, they are connected with three ideas of tanha, mana, and ditthi. Tanha, craving, attachment; mana, conceit; and ditthi, view. When we say, "this is mine," that's connected with tanha, because it belongs. I've got attached to this. This is mine. This is I, or this am I. That is mana. And this is myself. That is ditthi. So these three things, tanha, mana, and ditthi, arise out of wrong perception of things. We don't see things as they really are. That's the little expression we have for seeing the three characteristics. Yata bhuta jnana dasanam. To see things as they really are. And that is to see them as anicca, dukkha, anatta.
Do those three qualities correspond to, like, does the first one correspond to anicca?
Yes, because we don't understand or don't see anicca, we can think of this is mine. Because we don't understand dukkha, that allows mana to arise. And this is, or this I am. And then the third one is, this is myself, thinking that there is a self of some sort that can possess things and control things. So it is the concept of self which is the most dangerous of these three, because all the other things follow on in the wake of self. If you read or learn or study the Satipatthana Sutta, anybody not familiar with Satipatthana Sutta? It is the Buddha's comprehensive statement on the subject of mindfulness and meditation. Sati, mindfulness. Satipatthana Sutta is setting up of mindfulness around 4 areas. Body, you can be mindful of various things in the body, one of which is the best known one probably, which is breathing. You can also be mindful of the body walking, mindful of the way the body is composed of different bits, like teeth and nails and skin and internal organs. That's one satipatthana. Second satipatthana is mindfulness of feeling or sensation. We are aware when a sensation arises. Could be in the mind or in the body. It can be painful or pleasant or neutral. So instead of we have to select what we're going to be mindful of. So we now shift the attention over to sensations arising in the body and in the mind. The third satipatthana is mindfulness of the mind, which means what is the mental state I'm in at the moment? Is the mind full of happiness, or impatience, or generosity, or anger? You can watch the state of the mind and observe it. And then the fourth satipatthana is mindfulness of mental objects, which is the taking up of various aspects of the Buddha's teachings, like the Noble Eightfold Path, Four Noble Truths, and subjecting them to close examination. It's a very important sutta. The reason I'm mentioning it now is that there's an excellent commentary on this sutta by a German monk called Analayo. It's just called Satipatthana. And at the end of several hundred pages of exhaustive analysis and explanation, he says you can summarize this sutta with 4 letters: K, C, K, C. Keep calmly, knowing, change. So you don't have to read the first 300 pages, just go straight to the last chapter. Keep calmly, knowing, change. That is really the essence of the whole practice of mindfulness. To keep, that means all the time, not just occasionally, but keep calmly, maintaining a mind of equanimity, not being pushed one way or another, knowing from direct experience, change, that everything is changing. And that is the four-letter resume of the Satipatthana Sutta, if you read Venerable Analayo. So the point about what he's saying is that this is a way, all of these Satipatthanas are a way of training us to know change. That all of the things we can subject to the practice of mindfulness will help us to understand change.
So the Buddhist version of keep calm and carry on.
That's very good. That's very good.
Right, correct. So to begin with, to develop this quality of wisdom, we can practice mindfulness, being aware, as I said, of these four different areas, sometimes called foundations of mindfulness. It's not that they lead to the arising of mindfulness. There are four things about which we can be mindful. And then there's another word, investigation of phenomena, or investigation of Dhamma. Dhamma Vichaya. It's one of the 7 factors of enlightenment that we shall come to, I hope, when we get on to the virya, the energy perfection. We recite the qualities of the Buddha, one of which is accomplished in wisdom and conduct. Vidya Charana Sampanno. When we perform puja, he is accomplished in wisdom and conduct. So the Buddha is, of course, the most perfect example of wisdom or understanding. And we also have the word vimutti, Vimutti. There's 2 kinds, Ceto Vimutti and Pañña Vimutti. Ceto Vimutti is deep concentration, samadhi, and that culminates in the path of arahatship. Arahat is the enlightened being, and we have 2, all of these high attainments have 2 aspects, magga and phala, path and fruition. The path mind moment arises only once, and that is responsible for clearing away certain defilements in the mind. After that, the mind proceeds on the phala, on the fruition, which can go on and on and on indefinitely until another attainment is mastered. So we have Ceto Vimutti is connected with the Arahata Magga, the path moment. The path moment when the defilements are cleared away from the mind to to attain the state of arahat. But Pañña vimutti is connected with the fruition stage, the phala stage of the attainment. You can attain Pañña vimutti without having attained the jhanas, the meditative absorptions. And someone who does that is called Pañña vimutta, wisdom liberated. As an example from the Jatakas of wisdom. Sorry, any question before we go into the Jataka examples?
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Is anatta, no self, is the same as sunyata, emptiness, or are they different?
Sunyata is not found much in Theravada teaching, and I'm not absolutely sure I'm understanding it correctly, but I think it is the emptiness of everything, not just self, not just you as an individual, everything you see around you. All of these things, tables, chairs, buildings, they are all empty in the sense that there's nothing which can be taken as enduring. They are all just concepts which arise in the mind when the mind sees certain things, and the mind constructs out of that the concept of something existing. And the concept of shunyata, or emptiness, is to see through this misperception. So I think it's wider. The anatta is the individual. Sunyata is everything. So there's a Jataka number 402, the Satubasta Jataka. And the Bodhisatta was once someone called Seneca. And he was a counselor to the king of Benares. And he preached the Dhamma once a fortnight. And large numbers of people, including the king, went to hear him. And there was an old Brahmin who was begging for alms. And this Brahmin was given 1,000 pieces. And he gave these to another Brahmin to take care of. But the second Brahmin spent them. So when the owner, that's the first Brahmin, came to ask for them, the second Brahmin gave his young daughter to the first Brahmin as a wife instead of the 1,000 pieces. This girl had a lover, and in order to be able to see him, she asked her husband to go begging for money to pay for a maid to help her in the house, so she could get rid of him while he went out. She filled a bag of provisions for the journey, and on his way home, having earned 700 pieces, the Brahmin opened his bag, and having eaten some of the food, went to a stream to drink, leaving the bag open. A snake smelled the food, crept into the bag, and lay there. A tree sprite, a tree spirit, thinking to warn the Brahmin, said, "If you stop on the way, you will die." if you return home to your wife, she will die. And then he disappeared. So much alarmed, the Brahmin went to Benares, weeping along the way, and as it was the fast day, people were going to hear Seneca, and they directed the Brahmin to him. Seneca, hearing the Brahmin's story, guessed the truth. If he stays on the road, he will say at evening when he rests, I will eat some meal, and opening the sack, will put his hand in, then the snake will bite him in the hand and kill him. This is the cause of death, as predicted by the tree sprite. If he goes home, the sack will come into his wife's hand, and she will say, I will look inside, and opening the sack, put in her hand, then the snake will bite her and destroy her life, and this will be the cause of her death if she goes home today. Seneca had the bag opened in front of the people. The snake crept out and was seized. Seneca showed he had the wisdom of a Buddha. To show... Sorry?
Snake has wisdom.
No, Seneca.
Oh, see that.
This is the wise man who was able to interpret what the tree spirit had said. The Brahmin couldn't understand it, but Seneca could, and he explains it. If he stays with the bag, he will be killed. If his wife gets the bag, she will be killed. To show his gratitude, the Brahmin gave Seneca his 700 pieces. But Seneca gave them back with another 300, warning the Brahmin not to take the money home because his wife or her lover would steal it. So the Brahmin buried the money under a tree, but he could not keep the secret from his wife. She told her lover, and the money was stolen. The Brahmin again sought Seneca, who told him of a plan for discovering the lover. Knowing that the wife had told her lover, the Bodhisattva asked Brahmin, Is there a Brahmin who is a friend of your wife's? There is, O sage. Is there one who is a friend of yours? Yes, O sage. Then the great being, the Bodhisattva, caused 7 days' expenses to be given to him and said, Go, do you too invite and entertain on the first day 14 Brahmins, 7 for yourself and 7 for your wife. From the next day onwards, take 1 less each day, till on the 7th day you invite 1 Brahmin and your wife invites 1 Brahmin. Then, if you notice that the Brahmin your wife asks on the 7th day has come every time, tell me. The Brahmin did so and told the Bodhisattva, O sage, I have observed the Brahmin who is always our guest. The Bodhisattva sent men with him to bring that other Brahmin and asked him, Did you take 1,000 pieces belonging to this Brahmin from the root of such and such a tree? I did not, O sage. You do not know that I am wise Seneca? I will make you fetch those pieces. And the Brahmin was afraid and confessed, saying, I took them. When he was found, Seneca sent for him and made him confess his guilt. The Bodhisattva asked the first Brahmin, Brahmin, will you keep your wife or take another? Let me keep her, O sage. The Bodhisattva sent men to fetch the pieces and the wife, and gave the Brahmin the pieces from the thief's hand. He punished the other, removing him from the city. He punished also the wife and gave great honor to the Brahmin, making him dwell near himself. This story was related to the Buddha's wisdom. Ananda was the Brahmin, Sariputta, the tree sprite, and Seneca was, of course, the Bodhisattva. Okay. And then there's a second one about Prince Mahosadha, the clever sage. Mahosadha was the sage of King Videha of Mithila. King Chulani of Kampila, a rival kingdom, had a sage called Kevata. So you have Mahosadha working for the king, called Videha, and you have Kevata with the king Chulani. After a failed attempt to conquer the whole of India, Kevata had a plan to kill King Videha. The plan was that King Kulani's beautiful daughter should seduce King Videha. Despite Mahosadha's warnings, King Videha began to plan his journey to Kulani's kingdom, to follow through on the idea of marrying Chulani's beautiful daughter. But 4 months in advance of the arrival of King Videha, his sage Mahosadha started to build a palace 1 mile outside the capital. This palace had a secret tunnel which gave entrance to the Ganges River and to King Chulani's palace. When King Videha arrived at his new palace, the troops of King Chulani surrounded this palace because Chulani wanted to conquer Videha. As a reaction to this threat, Mahosadha sent through the tunnel King Videha to the Ganges to escape, and troops to Chulani's palace. These troops tricked Chulani's family through the tunnel to the Ganges River. It means that they made them go through the tunnel to the Ganges River. King Videha and Chulani's family went by boat to the kingdom of Mithila, which is King Videha's own kingdom. Soon after, Chulani learned of the disappearance of King Videha and his own family. When King Chulani met Mahosadha, he realized that he couldn't hurt Mahosadha because his own family had been taken hostage and had been taken back to the capital of Mithila. But when both men walked through the tunnel, at once Mahosadha took the sword which he had hidden the day before. He swung his sword high up and shouted, "Sire, whose are all the kingdoms of India?" King Chulani replied, "Yours, wise sir, spare me." Mahosadha said, "Be not troubled, sire. Queen, son, and mother all come back. My return is the only condition." Then Mahosadha handed over his sword to the king, and the two men swore sincere friendship. So now you realize just how clever